Welcome everybody who have sought this place for your weekend or for your evening's entertainment and enjoyment. Oh, you got that? You got that turned on?
The magic button.
All right. All right. Well, by means of an introduction, we'll talk a little bit about what's going on tonight. Well, we all know that it's medicine that keeps us healthy, and it's a law that keeps us functioning together as a society, and architecture, and there's the engineers who make the buildings we live in. But all of that is simply the utilitarian purposes that just keep us functioning, keep us here. But believe it or not, it's actually poetry. That's the reason we live. Now, of course, I use that term liberally, but not lightly. For tonight, at least, I'd like to use it as the synonym for the beauty we find in life, be it our strange attraction to a flower on our path, the touchdown pass we doubted would be caught, or even the drunken twinkle in our eye when something occurs to us, and only us, because we didn't stop drinking about 3 glasses ago. It's the mirth in the face of mortality. But our goal tonight is not dissimilar of that of chefs. We're adding flavor to the taste of information. And this is our kitchen. And with any luck, we'll have dropped any number of poetic crumbs along the way as the evening wears on. Now, before we go any further, I would like to announce, a lot of people know about this already, and a few people in the room already know about it, but for First Friday in July, that is going to be the Poetry First Friday. And the Poet Laureate of Minnesota, Joyce Sutphin, is going to be in town, and there's going to be a whole day of some fantastic events that are going on. There's going to be a poetry competition, there's going to be readings by Sutphin herself, as well as some open mics, not dissimilar to this, but it's going to be all part of a day of poetry festivities. So put it on your calendar. It's the July 1st Friday, which I believe is the 9th?
6th.
I get those two mixed up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the first Friday would never be the 9th.
It's on a roll.
Okay, anyway. Okay, so tonight we're going to have an assortment of readers. There's a sign-up sheet, which I already told, but so for anyone who's interested in reading, you can read your own work or that of a poet you admire or not admire. Maybe you want to share something that you think is particularly distasteful, and that's fine too. And so, and then as the evening goes on, I'll be calling readers up so that we can keep things going, and I'll start things off. And but by all means, have fun. If you hear something you enjoy from the reader, let them know. Applaud, laugh, give a cat call, whatever it is that you feel inspired to do, or inspired by what's being read. I'll start things off by actually reading a poem by Baudelaire, who I think this poem is. I think it has. It speaks to the feeling of the event, or at least how I would like to think the event is like. It's titled "Get Drunk." One should always be drunk. That's the great thing, the only question. Not to feel the horrible burden of time weighing on your shoulders and bowing you to the earth. You should be drunk without respite. But drunk with what? With wine, with poetry, or with virtue, as you please. But get drunk. And if sometimes you should happen to awake on the stairs of a palace, on the green grass of a ditch, in the dreary solitude of your own room, and find that your drunkenness is ebbing or has vanished, ask the wind and the wave, ask star, bird, or clock, ask everything that flies, everything that moans, everything that flows, everything that sings, everything that speaks, ask them the time. And the wind, the wave, the star, the bird, and the clock will all reply. It is time to get drunk. If you are not to be the martyred slaves of time, be perpetually drunk with wine, with poetry, or with virtue, as you please. Now, I'm going to turn this down a little bit. I don't think it needs to be that loud. I'll just start things up. I'll just read a few, and we'll just kind of take it from there, and I'll call the next person up who's on the list. This is one that I recently published in the Herald-Review in the Poetry Pocket. It's called Kind of a Note on Global Warming. People in northern Minnesota aren't apt to complain about global warming when we confuse a summer's day before the 21st of March. It's the day after St. Patrick's Day, and there's a low murmuring about as the residents are conflicted between hangovers and a beautiful day. The sky is too bright, but that's all right. The clouds are too fluffy too. We should be worried, really. The science is there, and this is unseasonal. The air, though, is romantic. It tries really quite hard to convince me that there's nothing truly to worry about. Not the overdue bills, or neglected friends, or laundry that hasn't been put away for days. The air speaks much more loudly than laundry. A nostalgic breeze blows by, one I've apparently felt before, but I don't remember when. Provided I take the breeze's word for it, it was a pretty damn good time. Another romantic time, if you will. But the wind only remembers the emotional moments, the heartfelt times. Of course, there's no real logic to the wind. Thank you. I don't know, anyone who was listening to KAXC last Thursday, I went on, I read a couple pieces, and they were two that went along with each other. And is this thing pinging?
Yeah.
A little bit? Is it pinging
If
in
you
an
want
annoying
to,
way?
you just can.
Yeah.
I think we just had it mainly for that reason, so if you want to just turn it off.
We'll just turn this down. If we have other problems with...
It's absolutely fine, because you shouldn't have any feedback at all.
I think it's a resonance coming from that bizarre sculpture.
You very well could be right. Isn't it beautiful though?
It is.
Yeah, it is. Part of the beauty is that it looks kind of dangerous. I don't know what to do. Yeah, so here's another warning for future readers. Be careful about your movement. If you're a very animated reader, just try to subdue yourself. But anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, at the reading, when I was reading at KAXC, I read two poems. One that they went together because there was something that I heard by means of a headline that reminded me of a poem by Frank O'Hara, and so I wrote a new poem, and so I'd like to read first off the poem by Frank O'Hara that inspired the piece that I wrote, and then I'll read mine. It's simply titled Poem. Lana Turner has collapsed. I was trotting along and suddenly it started raining and snowing, and you said it was hailing. But hailing hits you on the head hard. So it was really snowing and raining, and I was in such a hurry to meet you, but the traffic was acting exactly like the sky, and suddenly I see a headline. Lana Turner has collapsed. There's no snow in Hollywood. There's no rain in California. I have been to lots of parties and acted perfectly disgraceful, but I never actually collapsed. Oh, Lana Turner, we love you. Get up! And so when I heard this particular headline, my mind went straight to that poem, and I was like, well, this is a wonderful opportunity to write a poem, and so I did. This poem is titled Kim Kardashian Gets a Divorce.
Oh no.
An ode to Frank O'Hara and Lana Turner. Kim Kardashian gets a divorce. I was spending the day, like most others, with the exception of contemplating how best to continue quitting smoking. I haven't had a cigarette for 3 days, so now what? The girl I'm dating tells me she's so proud of me. She's never smoked, so she doesn't know what it's like. I shrug and giggle like a little boy at her approval. Then someone looking at Yahoo News turns and tells me, Kim Kardashian is getting a divorce. I'm divorced as well, and the girl I'm dating is on the fence about what she thinks about that. Kim and I are now part of the majority of the population who've fallen out of love. But for an institution that defines us at our moral base, how could you forsake us? Oh, Kim Kardashian, make it work, we love you! So, with any luck, I feel like me and Frank were really close to it there. But,
Well, with that, I would like to turn the mic over to, turn the podium over to whoever's next. We can always go back to the mic if need be, but, and we'll just take it from there. This is going to be a casual night of just enjoying ourselves and celebrating the written word. So, without further ado, I would like to invite Charles. So, you can go up and introduce yourself more properly than I can.
I'm Charlie Pulkrabek, and I live in Bemidji, but I work at KAC, and I recently got a writing degree. Poetry I've been a prose writer. I've really recently gotten into poetry, and this is my first time reading in public, so bear with me. So, I figure we'll break the ice right away. A lot of my poems are short, so I won't. I'll read a few, and then if there's more time later, I'll come back up and read a few more. So this one's untitled. At the taco store, the radio announced, "Atheists, most distrusted minority." All the young atheists laughed. Here's a prose poem. You cannot blame the plant life, the foliage in your little area of the world. It takes real guts, real imagination to say the dogwoods encroaching on the lawn are responsible for being anything but dogwood. When you are wandering around in your work pants mumbling with shears, be sure to remember, if even for only one moment, you have recognized your culprit. The disappointment is heavy, as it always is, and you have a fleeting thought, but the reflection, once and forever destroyed, still contains the truth. And freedom should have followed, but guts and imagination prevail, and those dogwoods will be on the burn pile by 2 p.m. I'll do one more lyric poem here. Let's do this one. The trap marks between my toes are less real than I, more dangerous. The sky opens a velvet rope, and I refuse. So rhythm takes over, the talented benign. On tax day I relent, happy hour in my lover's presence.
Next on the list is Mary.
My name is Mary Finch, and I'm a contributor at commentator at KAC, and I also write for the Untitled Review. I used to work as a certified doula. If you aren't familiar with the term, it's Greek, and it means helper, and that's just what I was a mother's helper giving birth. Other terms, of course, are childbirth assistant and labor coach. The 2 poems I'm going to read right now, they go together. They are both many years apart. Both are about mothers. The first one is about birth, and the other is about death. This is also my first time reading, so. A mother is born. A sensation so strong, a force taking over, a body no longer its own. A gasp, eyes open wide, vocal cords let loose with an emotional groan. An uncontrollable excitement. The time is near. A woman is giving birth. A feeling of rapture, sensations carry her away. Nature is bringing forth. She is capable, her trust unwavering. The belief she has in herself is complete. She rides through the surges, picturing her baby that soon she will greet. A sudden warmth, a burning of pressure, her hand gently reaches down. An exhilaration as she feels life for the very first time as his head begins to crown. She drops to her knees, gives a soft grunting push. Tears pour from her eyes. Her baby slips into her arms, perfectly formed. He gives out a hearty cry. She gazes at him, an unconditional love, a bonding. Her heart overflows. He nuzzles at her breast. They are one. She smiles, her face all aglow. This one is the baby at my breast. The baby at my breast isn't mine, but she's hungry all the same. To her, it doesn't matter from whence her dinner comes. The baby at my breast isn't mine, but my milk lets down in response to her cries. Her mother is crying also over her two toddler bodies. The baby at my breast isn't mine, but I was there when she was born. I showed her to her siblings. Look, your baby sister. The baby at my breast isn't mine, but she's not a sibling anymore. A reckless teen smashed that away from her. The baby at my breast isn't mine, but I was there when her siblings were born. All three I had held in my hands, only moments old. The baby at my breast isn't mine, but her mother mourns in peace, knowing that her one surviving child is being fed. The baby at my breast isn't mine, but she gulps down her borrowed meal and kicks her tiny feet in glee before drifting off to sleep. The toddler at my breast is mine, but he's confused that his meal is gone. I had to give it away, I tell him. Mine, he screams. The toddler screaming in my ear is mine, but his screams can't drown out their screams. They can scream no more, will never scream again. The toddler in my arms is alive, but two other toddlers have been erased, and I sink to the floor and start to scream myself.
Before we call the next person up, I mean, let's give her another round of applause. That's a tough poem. The next person on the list is Dave. Dave Martin.
Sure, I gotta follow that.
We don't like you anyway.
I'm Dave Martin. Some people know me as Red Dave. I probably write poetry because I read Dr. Seuss growing up. And I too am unaccustomed to public speaking. This poem, I actually brought it because I can tell people why I wrote it. Most of the stuff when people say, "Why'd you write that?" I say, "That's a good question." But this one, there was a girl, she had a birthday a couple of years ago, and we all were supposed to write a poem for her. So this is imaginatively titled, "To Marie on Her Birthday." It was in an old Bob Dylan song that I first heard the name of Absolutely Sweet Marie. And then I spent years going around the world, and I met one or two girls, but none that I could really call Absolutely Sweet Marie. And then one day, in a strange twist of fate, it was the right time, though it seemed like the wrong place, and I finally saw the smiling face of Absolutely Sweet Marie. She had the voice of an angel, but built for sin. Those blue eyes sparkled, and I fell right in with Absolutely Sweet Marie. We sang, we danced, we charmed, we laughed, and for a little while I played the love of Absolutely Sweet Marie. It was so easy to pretend, but plays like dreams must end. And now I still have a friend that I call Absolutely Sweet Marie.
That was quick, Dave.
I brought the short one because I had to write it out.
Okay. Next up, we have John Schroeder. And by all means, after we get through the list, we can basically have a free-for-all if you have anything more. I know that some people brought some books of poetry that they didn't write, but that someone else did. And so it's more than open at that point. But yes. And oh yeah, we got to stare at them.
Yeah, good for Kenny, you were just looking at the art.
But anyway, John Schroeder.
I'm one that tends to have a lot of too many irons in the fire, and so this one is kind of crying out to frustration with myself, I suppose. There's a two-letter word that I don't seem to know. It starts with an N and it ends with an O. I've been trying to learn it, but progress is slow. So if you ask me a question, I'll firmly say yes. I mean no. That's it. And just a couple other short one-liners somewhere. Here's an ode to a great quaff that is out there. You may know of it. Here goes. O hallowed brew of monastery perfection, 'tis only you in which is sure affection. This is more, maybe more of a philosophy or a proverb of sorts, but here it goes. The race isn't lost until the finish line is crossed. And then this is one that when I was living in Bovey, on a hot summer day, I was sitting on my front steps, and just something that came to mind as I looked across the street. A neighbor I see who is cutting his grass wears old saggy jeans. They're revealing his boxers. The old man is shirtless and it gives my eyes pain, but like a bad car crash, I keep looking again. If he'd take my suggestion, I think it'd be best if he'd stop mowing his lawn and go shave his chest.
All right. Next up, we have Sandy Perkins.
Okay, so if we want to read something by somebody else, we should save that till later.
No, you can read that as much as you want now.
All right, well, how many people are familiar with Taylor Mali and poetry slapping and all that stuff? Nobody, okay. Well, yeah, because we live with you. Well, this has the F word in it. Is that? I can leave the F word out.
No, I'll put it in.
No, I'll leave it out. I think I better leave it out. I can see by the faces. But this is called I Could Be a Poet. I think I could be a poet because I wear a lot of black. And I think of incongruous images like Marxists with the trust fund. A Porsche pulling a U-Haul, a lobsterman in Birkenstocks, sipping a cappuccino with his pinky pointing toward the sky. I've studied the poets who sing-song out their lines for no other reason than that's how it's done. In love with the sound of their own voices, ending each line going up, every single line going up, as they read and read and read. See, declarative sentences that in prose would go down, in poetry seem to go up, as if it adds some hidden meaning. I know what I'm talking about, and you should too. And I'm not afraid to get pissed off. I'm not afraid to use that one requisite swear word to let you know I am effing serious, man. I'm not afraid to shout with intensity at long dramatic pauses, fraught with angst. And still you can hear the lines going up, and the words, the vocabulary words, Glossonian, dysmetric, irresentilia, thrown in to remind you I am a writer. Eat my verbal dust. And then the end, spoken softly, hauntingly tender, though not devoid of irony, ending abruptly as if there is more. That's Taylor Mali. Look him up online. And the Green Mill in Chicago was the founding of the Poetry Slam movement. And I recently found out while I was home that a friend of mine there was married to the man who started that. His name is Mark, something or other. But he argues with Taylor Mawley, like any good poets should argue with each other. But look it up online sometime. Poetry slam is a whole fun thing. So let's see if I can read one of my poems here. I have two. Well, let's see. Maybe I heard you mention Bob Dylan. As I look out on a frozen lake and birches lit with sunrise, I hear him clear and constant, singing his beginnings. Like Woody, he saw the hard times lived around him. He found the poem in poverty and heard the song of a cold, clear Minnesota mining town. The streets of Greenwich Village would twist his notes and fill the voids. But in the voice of Dylan brings the range, harsh and toneless, true and deep. It resonates the inner core. The iron ore wants to go. And I have a duet poem, so I'm not reading that now. Instead, I'll read you one that's more personal, that my husband has heard 100 times, so I hope it's okay. This is called From France. My family's from France. Not much came from France. Not much could. The ship was small and filled with people. The men brought wives, brought children. They did not bring things. Dishware, perhaps, some tools, but they did not bring things. A bag of clothes or extra shoes, but they did not bring things. My grandmother's father could not resist, and with him came a fragile clock. Well swaddled in a blanket, something practical in that. The weights were in his pocket, the pendulum tied tightly to the case. There, below the deck, the people sat, shoulder close, the creaking beams a lullaby throughout the rolling hours. Mothers nursed their infants, people slept and retched and dreamed their changing lives. Some held hopes too high to ever be. Some debarked with one less child, an added burden brought ashore. Some were turned away before the lady's torch could keep its promise. A promise to these people who were tired, who were poor, who were the huddled masses waiting to be free. Through the long trip, my grandmother's father held his clock. This clock, for reasons no one knew, too important to leave behind. Perhaps it was the only thing that showed his standing in a town where miners hadn't much. Or did he want to measure all the hours in this new and hopeful life? Eventually, the French clock hung on my grandmother's wall. Its measured music lulled me through my childhood naps. Each night, my grandfather would wind the weights, by now near to the floor, making sure the clock's voice continued. He repaired it with nails from his blacksmith shop, cut a picture from a Chicago magazine to refresh its face, all this to please my grandmother. How I got this family prize, I can't recall. Cradled in a box marked handle with care, it waits unpacked in my new home. Unwound, its silence chimes loud to me, of a journey, across a sea, across a culture, across all the hours spent in dreams. Not much came from France, not much could, but my grandmother's father brought a clock.